Hello, Parkway Manor. Welcome back to How to Eat Fried Worms, written by Thomas Rockwell. Today's Tuesday, April 7th. Last time we learned, well, actually, I shouldn't say we learned, we met four friends: Alan, Billy, Tom, and Joe. Alan challenged Billy to eating 15 worms, and if he did that, he would give him $50. Now, basically, the conditions of the bet are that number one, when Billy eats the worms, he has to have witnesses. Number two, the other friends get to pick the worms for him. And number three, Billy can eat them one at a time, however he wants to eat them. So last time we read, the chapter ended with the boys digging and trying to find the perfect worm. Let's continue. We are on chapter 3, training camp. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Billy was doing push-ups in the deserted horse barn. He wasn't worried about eating the first worm, but people were always daring him to do things. And he found it was better to look ahead, to try to figure things out, to get himself ready. Last winter, Alan had dared him to sleep out all night in the igloo that they'd built in Tom's backyard. Yeah, why not? Billy had thought to himself. What could happen? Well, at about midnight, huddled, shivering under his blanket in the darkness, he'd begun to wonder if he should just give up and go back home. His feet felt like aching stones in boots. Even his tongue inside his mouth was cold. But half an hour later, as he was stubbornly dancing about outside in the moonlight to warm himself, Tom's dog Martha had come along with 6 other dogs, all in a pack, and Billy had coaxed them into the igloo and blocked the door with an orange crate. And after the dogs had stopped wrestling and nipping and barking and sniffing around, they'd all gone to sleep in a heap with Billy in the middle and kept him as warm as an onion in stew. But he hadn't been able to think of anything special that he could do to prepare himself for eating a worm. So he was just limbering up in general, doing push-ups, knee bends, jumping jacks, red-faced and perspiring. Nearby on an orange crate, he'd set out bottles of ketchup and Worcestershire sauce, jars of piccalilli and mustard, a box of crackers, salt and pepper shakers, a lemon, a slice of cheese, his mother's tin cinnamon and sugar shaker, a box of Kleenex tissues, a jar of maraschino cherries, some horseradish, and honey. Tom's head appeared around the door. You ready? Billy scrambled up, brushing back his hair. Yeah. Ta-da! Tom flung the door open. Alan marched in, carrying a covered silver platter with both hands. Joe, slouching along beside him with a napkin over one arm, nodding and smiling. Tom dragged another orange crate over beside the first. Alan set the silver platter on it. A chair, cried Alan. A chair for the monsieur. Come on, said Billy. Cut the clowning. Tom found an old milking stool in one of the horse stalls. Joe dusted it off with his napkin, showing his teeth, and then ushered Billy onto it. Ladies and gentlemen, shouted Alan, I present my masterpiece, Worm à la mode. He swept the cover off the platter. Oh, cried Billy, recoiling. Chapter 4. The First Worm. The huge night crawler sprawled limply in the center of the platter, brown and steaming. Boiled, said Tom. We boiled it for you. Billy stormed about the barn, kicking barrels and posts, arguing. A night crawler isn't a worm. If it was a worm, it'd be called a worm. A night crawler's a night crawler. Finally, Joe ran off to get his father's dictionary. The dictionary said nightcrawler is a noun. An earthworm. A large earthworm found on the soil surface at night. Billy kicked a barrel. It wasn't fair. He didn't care what any dictionary said. Everybody knew the difference between a nightcrawler and a worm. Look at that thing. Ugh. It was as big as a souvenir pencil from the Empire State Building. Ugh. He poked it with his finger. Alan said they'd agreed right from the start that he and Joe could choose the worms. If Billy was going to cheat, the bet was off. He got up and started for the door. He guessed he had other things to do besides argue all day. So Tom took Billy aside into a horse stall and put his arm around Billy's shoulders and talked to him about George Cunningham's brother's mini bike that he really wanted, and how they could ride on the trail under the power lines behind Odell's farm, up and down the hills, bounding over rocks. Vroom, vroom. Sure, it was a big worm, but it'd only be a couple bites. Did he want to lose a mini bike over 2 bites? Slap enough mustard and ketchup and horseradish on it? He won't even taste it. Yeah, said Billy, I could probably eat this one, but I had to eat 15. You can't quit now, said Tom. Look at them. He nodded at Al and Joe waiting beside the orange crates. They'll tell everybody you were chicken. It'll be all over school. Come on. He led Billy back to the orange crates, sat him down, tied the napkin around his neck. Alan flourished the knife and fork. Would Monsieur like it carved lengthwise or crosswise? Ketchup? Asked Joe. Cut it out, said Tom. Here. He glopped ketchup and mustard and horseradish on the nightcrawler, squeezed a few drops of lemon juice, and salted it and peppered it. Billy closed his eyes and opened his mouth. Tom sliced off the end of the nightcrawler and forked it up. But just as he was about to poke it into Billy's open mouth, Billy closed his mouth and opened his eyes. No, let me do it. Tom handed him the fork. Billy gazed at the dripping ketchup and mustard, thinking, oh, it's all right talking about eating worms, but doing it's another. Tom whispered in his ear, mini bike. Oh, glug. Billy poked the fork into his mouth, chewed furiously, gulped, gulped. His eyes crossed, swam, and squinched shut. He flapped his arms wildly, and then opening his eyes, he grinned up at Tom. Superb, Gaston. Tom cut another piece. Ketchuped, mustard, salted, peppered, horseradished, and lemoned it, and handed the fork to Billy. Billy slugged it down, smacking his lips. And so they proceeded, now sprinkling on cinnamon and sugar, or a bit of cheese, some cracker crumbs, Worcestershire sauce, until there was nothing left on the plate but a few stray dabs of ketchup and mustard. Well, said Billy, standing up and wiping his mouth with his napkin. So, we are done with the first course. Now, seconds? Now, let me look in your mouth, said Alan. Yeah, said Joe. Let's see if he swallowed it all. Certainly, said Billy. Look as long as you want. Alan and Joe scrutinized the inside of Billy's mouth. Okay, said Tom. Leave him alone now. Come on, 1 down, 14 to go. How'd it taste? Asked Alan. Good. Very good, said Billy. Very fine, very fine. He flapped his arms like a big bird and began to hop around the barn, crying, good, very fine, good. Alan and Joe and Tom looked worried. Yeah, good. How are you feeling, Billy? Tom asked. Yeah, stop flapping around and come tell us how you're feeling, said Joe. They huddled together by the orange crates as Billy hopped around and around them, flapping his arms. Good, good, very fine, very fine, very fine. Alan whispered, he's crackers. Joe edged toward the door. Don't let him see we're afraid. Crazy people are like dogs. If they see you're afraid, they'll attack. It couldn't be, whispered Tom, standing his ground. One worm? Good, good, screeched Billy, hopping higher and higher, now drooling from his mouth. Come on, whispered Joe to Tom. Hey, Billy, burst out Tom suddenly. Cut it out, will you? I want to ask you something. Billy's arms flapped slower. He tiptoed menacingly around Tom, with his head cocked to one side. Cheeks puffed out. Tom hugged himself, chuckling nervously. Hey, cut it out, Billy. Come on, cut it out. Billy pounced. Bah! Joe and Alan fled. The barn door banged behind them. Billy rolled on the floor, helpless with laughter. Tom clambered up, brushing himself off. Did you see their faces? Billy said, laughing. Ha! Climbing over each other out the door. Geez, Joe was as pale as an onion. Yeah, said Tom. You fooled them, all right. Geez, Billy sat up. Then he crawled over to the door and peered out through a little knothole. Look at them, peeking up over the stone wall. Watch this. The door swung slowly open. Screeching, Billy hopped up onto the doorsill into the yard, onto a stump, and splashed right into a puddle, flapping his arms and rolling his head all over the place. And then Billy stopped hopping, climbing up on the stump, called out in a shrill, girl kind of like voice. Oh, boys, where you going? I'd something to tell you, little boys. Alan and Joe stopped and looked back. I do, darling, home, little boys, yelled Billy. Is you too scared? Who's scared, you lunt? Called Alan. Yeah, yelled Joe. I guess I can go home without being scared if I want to. But ain't you in a awful hurry? Shouted Billy. I just remembered I was supposed to help my mother wash windows this afternoon, said Alan. That's all. He turned and started up through the meadow, his hands in his pockets. Yeah, said Joe, me too. And he trudged after Alan. They think he's gone crazy, like that the worm made him sick. Oh boy, he's joking. That's the end of our chapter, boys and girls. We'll begin tomorrow, Wednesday, April 8th, with chapter 5, The Gathering Storm. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.